Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another uh, workshop brought to you by Intense English. This time we're going to talk a little bit about presentation skills, speaking effectively. Okay, now I'm sure most of you get nervous during a presentation, right? Do you get nervous? Do you get nervous when you're talking in front of a group of people or even in front of one person? In front of one person, you're getting nervous because, hey, English is not your first language, okay? It's your second language, so you have the right to be a little bit nervous. But when we're presenting, the situation can be either easier or harder, okay? So let's take a look at what is presentation. And by definition, I would say it's an opportunity to communicate your point of view to others, okay? It's not hell on earth. It's a chance for you to talk with other people and convince them about your point of view. All right, so what's the best thing we can do? Well, we can seize the opportunity. Don't run away from it. So, of course, do you get nervous before speaking? Sure. Look, everyone experiences some kind of anxiety before a presentation, all right? Whether it's in front of one person or 200, you feel nervous. So what you have to do, try to confront that nervousness and control it. Turn those nerves into positive energy and adrenaline, okay? It'll help you get your message across. Now, it all boils down to what your attitude is to speaking. And recently there was a study by some American professors on speaking, and they came to the conclusion that there are two kinds of people. All right, those that are more performance oriented when they're speaking or presenting, and those who are more communication oriented. Now, if we put a continuum between these two sides of the coin, we end up with a situation where if you are more performance oriented, you're more nervous. Okay, and if you're more communication oriented, you're less nervous. You have reduced anxiety. Now, what's the difference between the two? Well, look, if you are performance oriented, you think that speaking must be perfect. It's supposed to be an aesthetic experience for your listeners. You're using all of your vocabulary, all of the grammar that you've learned, and you want this to be a perfect experience. Well, you can imagine that this really increases your anxiety. Now, if you're more communication oriented, which means, hey, I want to share the message with my listeners. Okay, they're not looking at me to judge me on my English skills or my speaking skills. They want to understand what I'm talking about. So look, I mean, the choice is yours. Do you want to be here? This poor nervous individual who says, "Oh my goodness, I've forgotten what I was supposed to say," or do you want to be confident, energetic, and say, "Yeah, let's talk about this. I'm ready to talk about this. Are you ready to listen?" All right. So, of course, it's important to know how to speak during presentations. And the first rule, and the second rule, and the third rule is to speak slowly. Okay. Now, during a regular conversation, we talk about 180 words a minute. During presentation, that slows down to 120. Now that's a big difference, okay? So basically you should speak 33% slower. All right, 33%. That's 1/3. Now how do you find out how quickly you are speaking? Well, look, you can just take one of these, everybody has one, and open up one of those wonderful apps that's speech to text and record your voice. Record yourself reading something for a minute, and then go back, look at the text, and see how many words you said. It's perfect, a perfect way. Now, another thing we have to do is to pause regularly when we're talking. Now, why do we do this? Well, look, first of all, short chunks of text are easier to follow. Okay, you want your audience to understand what you're talking about. It also helps regulate your breathing, right? Don't forget, you don't want to sound like you're trying to catch your breath, when you're talking too fast. Nobody likes to hear that. So if you pause regularly, you can breathe much easier. And of course, pausing will change the impact of your text. It'll make your speech or your presentation more powerful. And more importantly, it also gives you time to think. You need to think during your presentation, right? Think about what you're going to say next. And pausing lets you do that. Even half a second can give you time to think. Now let's take a look at this text, all right? This is a wonderful, wonderful sentence. Every now and then, a technology or an idea comes along so profound and so powerful and so universal that its impact changes everything. Boy, I hope that you've never sat through a presentation like that. Now let's try reading this a little bit differently, okay? Now let's take it a chunk at a time. So for example, we can go like this. Every now and then, a technology or an idea comes along that is so profound and so powerful and so universal that its impact changes everything. All right, now do you see the difference? That's a huge difference. Now these pauses have nothing to do with commas, okay? These are not where we have commas in the sentence. Commas are there for punctuation. That's not the same thing. All right, so we need to put some pauses in here. So where would you pause in this text? Well, there's many ways to do this, okay? I try to do it this way, where a one slash is a short pause and a double slash is a long pause. So I might say this bit of text like this. Just follow along. I might say, every now and then, a technology or an idea comes along that is so profound and so powerful and so universal that its impact changes everything. The printing press, the incandescent light, the automobile, manned flight. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, the world is changed forever. Now, I joined this industry in IBM because I believe that information technology has that potential. All right, so it's not a lot of words, but look, it took me a good half minute to read this, or to say this text. All right, so that's what you have to do. You have to pause. It's very important. Another thing we have to do is stress keywords. Okay, we're stressing keywords. So how do we do this? Well, theoretically, we stress keywords by speaking, by saying the vowel a little bit longer. All right, like for example, market or president or director. All right, but how does this actually work in reality? Well, let's take a look at one sentence, the same sentence, and I will stress different words in each line, okay? So take a look at how different the meaning is each time we do this. So for example, I can say, I will never agree to that, all right? I will never agree to that. Now, maybe someone else will agree to that, but I won't. Now, if we take that same sentence and we change it and we say it this way, I will never agree to that. Well, folks, that's the end of the conversation. There's nothing else you can say that's going to change my mind. All right. Now, if I put emphasis at the end of the sentence and I say, I will never agree to that, right? All of a sudden, I'm saying, well, make me a better offer. I might change my mind. So in each of these cases, it was the same sentence, but the meaning was totally different. Now look, this is really important. If you don't know which words to stress, don't stress any. Keep it flat. Okay? Don't put any stress in the sentence because you risk sending the wrong message. You don't want to do that. So let's just take a look at a couple of examples here. Which word should be stress? Now these two sentences are very similar. In the first sentence, I might want to say it this way. I will say, well, the British will never agree to that, but the Germans might. Okay, I want to underline these two ideas, that the British and Germans have a different point of view. And in the second example, well, I can say it this way. The British will never agree to that, not in a million years. Okay, so that's a very definitive no. All right. And how about this next one? How would I say this sentence? Well, I don't know. I might say it like this. Sales are up on last year, but profits have hardly moved at all. All right, so I want to compare sales and profits here. Now, what about this next sentence? Well, now here maybe I want to say that, look, maybe sales have increased, but still it wasn't enough. So I might say it this way. I might say, well, sales are up on last year, but it was still a very bad year. Okay, so this is how word stress really can change or underline the meanings of different words, different sentences that you want to say. Now, there's a couple of tools that we use when we want to convince somebody that what we're saying is right. Contrast is one of them. All right. Now, there's a difference always between written text and text during presentations. Now, take a look at this first example. This airline is facing a very difficult situation. Well, all right, that's not very powerful. I might want to say it this way. This airline is not facing a difficult situation. This airline is facing a life-threatening situation. Okay, so I'm contrasting these two ideas. All right, I want people to listen to what I'm saying, to open their ears, and you know, when they can see the two different sides of a situation, it makes it easier. It makes them easier to understand what the choices are here. For example, you remember this from the previous speech. When it happens, the world is changed forever. Now that's not that powerful, but what if we say it this way? It doesn't happen often, but when it does, the world is changed forever. Perfect presentation. All right, so this represents a big step forward for mankind. Now, I don't know if you know this this statement. This is a very important moment in history. Maybe you recognize this. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And you may know this text. This is when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. Okay, so yeah, it wouldn't have sounded as powerful if he would have been formal and said, well, this represents a big step forward. All right, now very often we also use a puzzle solution format. So for example, we may have a situation like this. President Reagan sacked all the academic economists in Washington, which was a very wise move. Oh boy, I'm ready to fall asleep already. Now, we can say this a different way in a kind of a question format. Then President Reagan did a very wise thing. Pause. He sacked all the academic economists in Washington. All right, so my intention here is to get the audience to think for a second. You know, what very wise thing did he do? And here's another good example. Nothing stands in our way except our own fears. Well, a very good way of bringing a little excitement into a presentation is to say it this way. What stands in our way? Nothing but our fears. Okay, so here I'm asking a direct question. This is why we call this a rhetorical question, right? Because we really know the answer, nothing but our fears, right? Nothing is impossible. And finally, oh boy, let's move on to the operative situation. Well, how about this? Now on to the operative picture. Is it just as black? I'm afraid so. All right, and this is legendary, the list of three. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book, or one of the oldest tools of the trade. For example, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Abraham Lincoln, a long, long time ago, right? Lists of three. This seems to make it more powerful, what we want to say. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. All right? And typical use of three. Usually we try to find three qualities or three examples of something that we want to convey. In this case, we have, let's take these steps today and secure our vision of being the most trusted, the most competitive, and the most profitable airline in the skies. Okay, and finally we have repetition, and repetition is a very powerful tool. Let's take a look at this example. I still have a dream which is deeply rooted in the American one. I have a vision that one day this nation will rise up and. All right, it's wonderful. Good sentence. I'm not repeating any words. Right? You're not supposed to repeat words when you write. But if we're presenting, and you probably recognize this speech, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and. All right, so Martin Luther King. All right, Martin Luther King, very famous speech. And let's look at this one. Our airline is currently losing $7 million a day. Well, if I want to emphasize and tell people, hey, this is really important, I might say, right now, our airline is losing $7 million a day. Let me repeat that. 7 million every day. And of course, the most typical way is just to repeat words. The product is absolutely wonderful. Well, I can just say, the product is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. Now let's take a look at a speech. This is not a real speech. It's part of a movie. You may recognize this gentleman. He's quite young and handsome in this photograph because it's 1987. Long time ago. We were all young and beautiful back in 1987. And he had a speech which has been called Greed is Good by Gordon Gekko. And it's amazing that this is 1987. The film is Wall Street. I don't know if you've seen it. It's worth seeing again if you haven't seen it for a long time. It certainly is very refreshing indeed. And let's just take a look at some of these tools in this speech. Okay, these 4 tools that we learned. Okay. So let's see in this first part. Let's see. Do we have any examples here of rhetoric? And we do right in the beginning, right here. Look at this. We're not here to indulge in fantasy, but in political and economic reality. So what is this an example of? Well, contrast, right? This is an example of contrast. Let's see, what else? What else do we have here? Here we go. Carnegie's, the Mellons, and the men that built this great industrial empire. Okay, so here we have a list of 3. This is used quite a bit all through history. Now we have, let's see, there's going to be a lot of rhetoric here. All right, let's see. How about right here? Look at this. And where does Mr. Cromwell put his $1 million salary? Not in Teldar stock. He owns less than 1%. Okay, so a typical situation where we have a question and answer format. And let's see, what else do we have here? Well, we've got some good examples of repetition. You own the company, that's right, you, the stockholder, and you are all being royally screwed over by these bureaucrats with their steak luncheons, their hunting and fishing trips, their corporate jets and golden parachutes. A lot of rhetoric there, and this is a combination of repetition and lists of 3, very powerful indeed. And here's another one at the end here. Now I have spent the last 2 months analyzing what all these guys do, and I still can't figure it out. Okay, so this is like a puzzle format. And one more thing here it's worth mentioning. With all of this rhetoric, there's still some important information in this. For example, we say, or he has said, Teldar paper, Mr. Cromwell, Teldar paper has 33 different vice presidents, each earning over $200,000 a year. These are important facts. All right, don't forget to include important facts in your information, not just rhetoric. All right, let's see. Almost finished, folks. I know you don't have a lot of time. Let's see what other examples we can find. Well, how about at the end here? Very powerful statement. I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them. Okay, so a very powerful example of, that's right, contrast. Okay, contrast. And finally, look at this. Now, I'm sure it's going to be easy to figure out what this is an example of. Take a look at this. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that it is greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all its forms, greed for life, for love, for money, for knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind. And greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA. All right, well, anyway, it certainly convinces me that greed is good. But once again, I mean, this would be totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable if you were writing an email. You would not use the same word 7 times in one paragraph. But in presentation, well, this may be a little bit exaggerated, but in presentation, we can do that in order to get our point across. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I would say that we can finish up by just saying the three things never return: the spoken word, the spent arrow, and the lost opportunity. Okay, so please let me just remind you that presentation is an exciting opportunity to share your ideas. Okay, nobody's going to be looking at your English skills, or maybe somebody will, but nobody's going to be looking at your English skills. They want to hear what you have to say. All right, and if you can concentrate on that, you will be less nervous and you'll do a better job. All right, well, I hope you got something out of that. Thank you for spending the time with me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.